Youorns. Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the Youorns 10-minute take on Watford 2, Huddersfield Town 3. Watford undone with the same kind of things that undo Watford in every game. The lack of consistency, the lack of commitment, the inconsistency in their play from one half to the next, and a situation where players end up playing as individuals and don't pass the ball in a good, sensible way. And the end product completely goes astray. That's what we saw today at the Vicarage Road, that was galvanized by the Watford play in the first half and the nearly 70% possession that the team had. They dominated Huddersfield in the first half and got a half-hour goal to show for it. Asprilla getting his first goal in a Watford shirt in his first start under Chris Wilder. Watford up 1-0 against the Huddersfield Town side that had been battling against relegation. But things turned around very quickly, because even though Watford dominated the first half, what we saw in this first half were Huddersfield Town going down the flanks on Watford, catching Watford out on the counter several times. Ryan Porteous gave away I think a needless foul in the first 14 and a half minutes of the game, and he was on notice for the entire rest of the game after that. And that comes from a lack of defensive discipline. Porteous actually had a decent game considering everything, but Watford became very, very, very vulnerable in defense on the counter, and Huddersfield threw plenty of warning signs at Watford throughout that first half. And then in the 44 and a half minute of that first half, they paid dividends with their warnings, because they cashed the warnings in against Watford, and they scored, carving Watford open through the middle and putting the ball into the back of the net past Daniel Bachmann. 1-1 at half-time. The worst time to concede in football is right at the half and right at the beginning of the second half. Those are really the two worst times. There's no ideal time to concede in football, but Watford were just about to go in to half-time up 1-0, and that goal scored by Huddersfield right before the end of the half was a massive turnaround for them, a very key moment in the game. Then that was a whole situation for Watford, because they just never looked the same after that goal went in. And the second half began, and it was all Huddersfield. Huddersfield played very well the second half. They dominated a number of times in the game with clinical shot making and good passes. Watford could have been in deeper trouble had it not been for some clearances from Watford defenders when it really counted in the first half. And in the second half, Huddersfield began to take control of the game. Watford stagnant, not moving the ball quickly enough, not passing the ball with any care or quality. The players not moving for each other as a team, not working for each other, not connecting with each other. Changes were made, and those changes didn't really have the desired effect for Watford. And Huddersfield scored another goal to take them to the goal that would ultimately, really wouldn't seal the game, would seal the game for them in the end, but they were up 2-1. And the goal coming really from a substitute who'd just come on the pitch, I think the second or third goal that they scored. But look, the bottom line is that Watford were trailing 3-1 in the game. And it was very late, less than 2.5 minutes to go. Britt scored a goal again for Watford, his second for Watford, and he scored at the same end of the ground in front of the Rookery where he scored his first goal for Watford a few weeks ago against Birmingham. This was a very different game, and Watford began to completely unravel at the end. Despite being down 3-2, they continued to throw away the game and their season, as they've done for a lot of this season. Daniel Bachmann, coming up to try to equalize the game at the death, had a flying boot that he kicked out at one of the Huddersfield players. And of course, when you kick out at a player and you make contact, even if you don't really make contact, you're going to be sent off. And in this case, he made contact pretty severely. Well, not severely, but he made enough contact with the Huddersfield player to send him down. And that was really it. Dangerous play, violent conduct. Daniel Bachmann, red card. He'll miss his next match. It was a really disgraceful performance. Watford players let themselves down, let the fans down, as they've done a lot this season, and really became very selfish and petulant in the last few minutes of the game. Daniel Bachmann sent off. He wouldn't go off the field at one point. He had to get a Watford physio on to pull him off the field. I mean, it was that bad at the Vic. The atmosphere was toxic. It was awful. And the bottom line is you had Hamza Chowdhury in goal. And I don't think Hamza Chowdhury had a good game. Look, none of these Watford players had a good game today. I mean, if you want to look at Asprilla, and he got injured, for goodness sakes, I think he was pretty decent. I mean, pretty much that was it. But everyone else just let themselves down in key moments. And Watford FC now are a sinking ship. These final 6 games of the season are an audition for next season. That's what these games are now for Watford. There's no playoffs going to be coming to Vicarage Road. And I think Luton Town will get promoted in the playoff final. I think that's what they're going to get. And it will be a serves you right moment for Watford Football Club. Not for the fans, but for the club and especially for the owner. Because there have to be lessons learned somewhere. And one of the biggest lessons, hopefully, would be that Luton gets promoted while we stay where we are. And Luton get promoted with the manager that this owner sacked after 10 championship games. You can just see that coming, can't you? Well, for us as fans, while the players and the men's team and the first team have an audition, we as fans have to start to strategize about what we're going to do. Whether it's at this upcoming fans meeting, whenever this is, we need ideas, we need suggestions, we need your passion, obviously, but we also need constructive ideas and engagement. And if you don't want to do that, or you're not willing to, if you're fed up with that, then maybe what you should do is take your money out of Watford. Stop buying the season tickets. Stop buying the merchandise. Stop going to the games. That's something that you can also do. Stay home and watch the game. Maybe you spend some money on Hive Live. But the bottom line is that we have to engage in strategy, because the only thing that the owner's going to understand is the money when it's not coming into the club from the fans anymore. And the fans say, right, we're gone. We're pulling our money out of here until we see change. And this is the kind of change we want. That has to be the two-pronged strategy. Or if you don't want to do either of those things, there's always the silent protest. Bring your banner and protest. Now, from what I learned today, a Watford fan who had the banner Pozzo out was ejected from the Vic. And if that fan was not swearing, if the banner wasn't a banner that had any swear words on it, and for what I know, it did not have any swear words on it, that fan should be allowed to stay in. That fan should never have been ejected from the stadium. And this is why the relationship between the club and the fans is at one of the all-time low points that it's ever been at. You don't eject a fan who has a banner that says Pozzo out. That fan paid attendance to get into the ground. That fan has every right to peacefully protest. Now, if the fan is being violent, if the fan is using foul and abusive language, if the banner that the fan is holding up had anything with abusive or foul language on it, I'm completely for him getting, or her, or they getting ejected out of the stadium. But the banner didn't have any swear words on it. And that fan should have been allowed to stay in the stadium. The fan should have been allowed to stay. And that's where this club gets it wrong. That's where the fan base is alienated from the club, because you're not allowing the voices to be heard in the stadium in a peaceful way. That fan didn't advocate any violence. The fan had a banner. The banner didn't have any foul language on it. That fan has a right to be heard, and that fan has a right to speak. And when you do this to the fan base, you antagonize the relationship between yourself as a club and the fans. And that has to change. And it's not the fans that need to reach out to the club. It's the club that needs to reach out to the fans. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.